On February 22nd, 1985, 8-year-old Cherrie Mahan got off the school bus at the end of her driveway. She was 50 yards from her house, but she never made it home. A strange van was seen in the area around the same time. This 70s model van had a mural painted on the side. It was of a skier on a snow-capped slope. The van and the child seemed to have disappeared into oblivion. Sometime later, the mother receives a gruesome letter. This letter tells her of all the horrible things that were done to her daughter, and it gives a location of her daughter's remains. She immediately contacts the police. They investigate and find this is nothing more than a cruel hoax. Over the decades, 3 women have come forward claiming to be the missing child, but all 3 have been disproven. Do you have any information on this cold case out of Pennsylvania? If so, please call the tip line today. This episode is brought to you by Behind every true crime story is a shattered life. I have raised awareness for over 300 cases and have worked directly with the family members on many of them. This book highlights 40 case files. Some of them are famous, many of them are obscure. There's missing persons cases, unsolved homicides, serial killers, and more. Check out Shattered today to learn more. Today we're talking about a cold case of Cherrie Mahan. She's an 8-year-old girl who got off of the school bus and was never seen again. It happened in Butler County, Pennsylvania. She went to the Winfield Elementary, and she was last seen on February 22nd, 1985. The bus wouldn't stop at each individual driveway. It actually went past Cherrie's driveway just a little ways, a 100 feet or so, a couple hundred feet, and then it kind of stopped in more of a centralized area, and then a bunch of kids would get off the bus and they would kind of scatter out to their own driveways. Cherrie actually had to go back behind the bus to get back to her driveway. Not only did she do that, she had to go around a little curve in the road, just a small bend in the road, just enough to where she was out of eyesight. By the time she got to her driveway, she was just out of sight of the driver. Now, nowadays things are different, all the rules and regulations and things. I don't think the bus would do that. I think the driver would have to stop there because they couldn't visualize her getting to her property. But this was 1985. Everything was a little different then. They stopped there, and sometimes there would be parents waiting at the end of the driveways. Sometimes they would wait in vehicles if it was cold, and there was snow on the ground. So this is one time where there was a vehicle with a mother. Her name was Debbie Burke, and she picked up 3 of the children that were getting off the bus that day. She did know Cherrie very well, and Cherrie was going to walk up her driveway home. They say it was approximately 100 to 150 yards to her house. I believe that was also including the driveway from the bus to the driveway to the house. It was a very short distance, and like I said, if it wasn't for that little bend in the curve, you could have seen her go all the way to her driveway. But anyways, Debbie Burke did see the child exit the vehicle. She seemed happy and bubbly. Everything seemed normal. There was no one was upset or anything. She did see the child walk back past the bus and back around that little corner, and just behind that little corner was her driveway. So Debbie assumed that she made it to her driveway. Several of the kids and Debbie all noticed the strange vehicle that had been following the bus. That vehicle was described by some of the kids on the bus and Debbie. So we have both children as witness and adults as witness. It was a mid-70s, what I call a panel van, and it was a Dodge van, and it was either blue or green. It was kind of an odd color, and what made it stand out and so strange was it had a mural along the side of it. It was a big mural that took up the whole side of the van. It was a snow-covered mountain and somebody skiing down the mountainside. So it was kind of an unusual thing to see on the side of a van, and everybody noticed this van. She was all excited and happy because she had plans for the evening. It was a Friday, and her mother had planned on taking her to a play date at a friend's house after school, so everything was happy and bubbly and going great. Unfortunately, something devastating was waiting for her at the end of her driveway. Both her parents were at home that day, but for some unknown reason, they didn't meet her at the end of the driveway like they usually do. Um, they um, they both heard the bus pull up, and Leroy, which was her stepfather, hurried down there, a few moments later to walk her the back of the way up the driveway. Well, when he went down there, she wasn't there. They didn't find anything of her there. There was no, in the movies when a child is snatched, you see the book bag scattered across the driveway, or something like that. That was not the case. There was nothing. It was just like she disappeared off of God's green earth. And so he ran back up to the house, got his wife. Nobody knew. Everybody, they got volunteers, they got the police. Nobody could find it. They brought in bloodhounds. They couldn't find her scent anywhere, and it was snowy, so they looked up her driveway. There was no visible footprints, so it doesn't look like she made it up her driveway at all. There was some tire prints right at the base of her driveway, and so it makes people think that she was picked up at the end of her driveway. Now, this is a very tight quartered place. Yes, there's a little curve in the road, so you couldn't see a little girl. I think it said she was 4'2". So if she's walking around the edge of the road, around that edge of that curve to get to her driveway, you may not see her as she rounds that corner, but you would see a vehicle. I mean, you can't hide a vehicle. This is a small area. It's very wooded, but you would see the vehicle sitting there. And so everybody took notice of this van. And that was kind of the focus of the law enforcement and everybody. They canvassed the world for this van. They tracked down every van they could find, and the van never turned up. Nobody ever seen this van. There was a couple possible sightings of this van shortly thereafter, but after that, it all dried up and there was no van. So that's where kind of law enforcement went off. This all happened about 4:10 in the afternoon was when the bus stopped there and all the kids got off. So what happened to this child? I'll give you just she was last seen. She's got brown hair and hazel eyes. Said she was wearing a gray coat. She had a white leotard with white tights on, a blue jean skirt over it with blue leg warmers and little beige boots. And then the part that always breaks my heart as a mama, she was wearing Cabbage Patch earmuffs. Sorry. And so, man, I didn't think I was going to lose this. I'm sorry. So anyways, that was what she was last seen wearing. None of that's been found. The dogs didn't find anything. They combed that wooded area, that brush, that little cliffside, everything. Could not find this little girl, and it's been 35 years now. Now, to make things even more devastating, as if this wasn't bad enough, recently it came to light the history behind Cherrie. Now, Cherrie was her mother's name was Janice, and her stepdad was named Leroy. Now, what people didn't realize was Janice had given birth to Cherrie before she was married to Leroy, before she met Leroy. She was a 16-year-old girl that had been raped, and she gave birth to Cherrie, excuse me. And back at that time, there was a lot of victim blaming. There was a lot of disrespect towards victims, female victims of rape. And unfortunately, that still goes on today, but back then it was really bad. It was easier for you to hide the fact than it was to admit the fact back then. And she said that she went to the police, but no one believed her. And so you watch some of these interviews with this mother that she gave to CNN and different news broadcasts. And she said she was a 16-year-old child raising a child, and she said they grew up together. So this was a piece of her world, this was her whole world. And so she had this child, and eventually she did get married to the man Leroy, and he took her daughter in as his own. And by 1985, when this all happened, life was kind of settled down and doing pretty good. Life was okay. But um, this was the thing at the time. um, it was just kind of one of those things they didn't talk about, because back then it wasn't accepted. It wasn't, I we can get into that discussion later. But anyways, Janice came forward many years later, and she said she believes that she wonders if someone um, close to the biological father of Cherrie actually knows something about this. Of course, she can't prove that, but that's her theory. In 2011, law enforcement came forward and made a public notice that they had received a crucial lead to this case, the best lead they'd had in years, and they believed it was credible, and they were going after it. But they never did release what that lead was, if it was a person, a suspect, nothing. They didn't release any information hardly about it, and here it is 9 years later. I'm wondering how crucial it really was, or if it was crucial and they're still just struggling to get it all pulled together. I don't know. I'll have to leave that. We'll just have to leave that to to find out what happens later, I guess. We do know that the law enforcement has worked nonstop on this case. This is not one of those cases that has been dropped for 20 years and now some new investigators coming in and picked it up. It has been continuously been worked on. They have spent countless man hours trying to work on this. They have searched. For some reason, they got some tips. They're getting tips fairly constantly, and even 35 years later, they're getting a fairly good stream of tips. Sometimes they get one a month. Sometimes it'll go a few months and they'll get some more. But it's a fairly good stream of tips. And but they say they follow every tip. They don't discount any one of them. One tip led them to ransack a junkyard looking for clues. Another one, they dug in an old mine shaft. I mean, they've really hunted and searched for this. And in 2014, the poor mother went through another whirlwind, thinking that they may have found her. 2014, a woman approaches the family thinking that she may be Cherrie Mahan. She was adopted. There was a lot of suspicion going on. There was some different things in her life that made her believe that she could possibly be this missing child. She was living under a different name in Michigan, and they went through the whole whirlwind of hope and expectancy, only to find out through DNA testing that this wasn't the woman. Now, they never have released that woman's name, and they never have come out publicly and said that she did this out of viciousness or spite. They never have said that this was a cruel joke. So it could just been a woman, sincerely thinking that this could have been the answer she was looking for. So I hesitate to say that this was a cruel joke, but it could possibly be. Now, in 2018, another potential lead came in, and this time it was dramatic. It was an anonymous handwritten letter describing who killed Cherrie, who kidnapped her, why, and where her body could be found. And it was very graphic, it was heart-wrenching, and it was sent to the mother. Now, law enforcement has had that for the last 2 years, and Janice told CNN that she hasn't heard yes or no if this is legitimate or not. She hasn't heard anything about it. They just say they're working on it. Unfortunately, they haven't come right out and said this is a definite positive proof. So there's still that slight thought that maybe Cherrie is still alive, living under another name, being raised by another family. So we don't know. And so this poor mother is still, even after all of this, um, still at the same point she was years ago. And if you watch the CNN interviews, it really goes into graphic detail about how this case has affected this poor mother. Now, for a time, she was struggling with drug addiction. She was about to lose all hope. There was times that she contemplated suicide. It really goes into the grieving of this mother, and yet all of these years, nothing's changed except for one thing. Janice has finally found her footing emotionally, and she says she has forgiven the situation. She can't forget it, of course, but she has found her emotional footing and her spiritual footing, and she seems to be handling life. She does have another child now, and life has continued on, whether she really wanted it to or not. And that is the reason why I decided to do this video today. This is a case that um, you've got. I wrote a book called Shattered, and you can see my book. It's just off camera here, so I'm gonna see if I can take it off the wall. There it is. Yeah. Okay, this is actually so you can see it here. But I wrote a book called Shattered. I don't know if I can get it back up there. Oh, I did. Um, I wrote that book because what people don't realize is you might spend hours scouring the internet for all these cases. You might watch 48 Hours or Dateline or the Investigation Discovery. It might be um, something that you like to do. But I always want people to realize at the core of all of these stories that you binge watch on Netflix is a grieving family member. And so I write everything and I come through everything at the from the standpoint of a victim's advocate, because in this case, this mother is her world is stopped in 1985, and it's a very unusual phenomenon that the world for one person can stop and yet continue for 35 years. And that's the way this is, and it's the way it is for every family member I work with. And so this is a case that was written about on my blog for Sonova Inc. Publishing. As some of you know, um, Sonova Inc. Publishing has gotten big enough now that I do have a few guest bloggers, and one of them actually wrote about Cherrie, and his name is Ian, so I wanted to give him a shout out. I will put the link to his guest post in the video, the description of this video, so you can see Ian's work. He goes into a lot more detail. He's a very good writer, and he's very passionate about these cases as well. So wanted to give him a quick shout out for writing the actual story on my blog. And then I will give you some other links to where you can watch these interviews with this mother and get a little more information. Then I've got a couple pictures that I will edit into this video. Those were taken offline. I'll show you where you can find those. But what I want you to do when you watch these videos, I want you to remember that there's a person hurting, a person that's devastated because of these cases. And I want you could say, well, Sonova, what can I do about it? Well, I had the same thought process. What can I do about it? All I have is an ink pen and a typewriter, a little bit of knowledge about marketing. I don't have a badge. I don't have any way of doing anything to solve this case. But then I realized I can use my skills to get more publicity for these cases. And so that's what I've chosen to do. That's my passion project. That's what I do with my business, is to help solve these cases, just to generate leads for law enforcement to help their jobs, to potentially get these cases solved. So what can you do as a viewer? Quite simply, all you have to do is like and share. That's it. Your job is even easier than mine. All you have to do is share. Hit the share button, share it to everyone that you know that would be interested in these kinds of stories.
Recently, within the last couple of weeks, another woman has gotten on Cherrie Mahan's Facebook memorial page claiming that she was Cherrie. And when anybody called her on any of her information, she got somewhat verbally abusive. And so this person was removed from Cherrie's memorial Facebook page. Now, so this is the opportunity that I would like to share with you guys, just to give you a little bit of information on how these things work. Now, there are all kinds of sick people out there that will come forward just to try to insert themselves into investigations. Now, some of them are have mental issues, and there's some psychotic break. There are some psychosis there. There's others that are just vindictive, that want to cause more pain. So do I think that letter actually came from the killer? It probably didn't. If you want to know the truth, we still don't know that Cherrie isn't alive. So she may have been kidnapped and taken elsewhere, raised by someone else. We don't know. But this is something that I want you guys to know as my audience. I want you to be an educated true crime audience, not someone that just watches the stories. I want you to be educated in this situations. And so everything that I've learned, I try to pass on to you. And this is what I want you to understand. When you start commenting on Facebook posts, when you are talking about cases that are sensitive, keep in mind that the family watches all of them. Okay. And this is the reason why sometimes I don't come across as sharp or harsh on certain points on certain cases that I probably could or should, because I realize the mother is probably watching. The brother, the sister, the aunt, the uncle, the father, they're probably watching. And the reason why I know that is because I have worked with dozens and dozens of family members. My job, first and foremost, is a victim's advocate. And so I tell these stories. I try to raise an audience for these stories. I try to build my audience up because I know the more numbers I can bring in, the more people will see these stories and it'll help solve the case. But the problem is as a victim's family member, you are constantly scouring the internet for more information. You are hoping somebody comes forward with that little piece of information to bring you the answers you need. So yes, the mother was on that Facebook and she saw what this woman was posting. And all that did was hurt that mother again. It just caused her more pain and more grief. So I don't believe anyone in my audience, I hope to believe no one in my audience would actually come forward and claim they are somebody who they're not, just to cause problems. But you can also take this and learn from it. Be careful what you comment. No matter whether you think it's true or not, if it's going to cause harm to the victim's family member, is it really worth posting? Most of the time, the answer is no. Now, here's the thing. Some victims that I write about aren't innocent. Okay? Some victims that I write about don't have a squeaky clean history. Okay? But I don't write about those things because this person still meant something to the loved ones they left behind. So I don't go into the hard things. I don't want to do anything to damage this victim's reputation. And so I want you guys to be careful when you post. Be careful when you comment. And think about Is this something that I'm typing out? Is this something that I want the grieving father to read about his daughter? Is this something I want the grieving sister to read about her sister? If it's not, then don't write it. Okay? I'll keep you updated. Hopefully we do find some information on Cherrie Mahan and we can actually give some answers to this family. In the meantime, I will keep you posted if I see anything. Bye, guys.
Today's episode is brought to you by Bones Coffee Company. You can forget about boring coffee when you drink Bones Coffee. Not only do they offer a variety of flavors such as strawberry cheesecake and maple bacon, they are a family-owned company that puts great detail not only in their coffee, but in the artwork that comes on each individual bag. Bones Coffee has a coffee club that will deliver your favorite coffee to your door every month. If that wasn't enough, they also have some amazing swag to offer. Check out Bones Coffee Company today. I'll have my affiliate links in the show notes for you.